What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. Hope you are all doing really well. We're going to talk about the nerfs that came in. This is probably the biggest sweep of nerfs that we have seen in Mythic Plus in Dragonflight so far. Like, they waited way too long to do this, honestly. Some of these nerfs that were needed, they were needed a long time ago. But thank God they finally got here. Mythic Plus tuning hotfixes have come in. Yeah, so this is really good. I'm going to walk through each and every one of them. I'll show you some footage, and we'll talk about kind of the implications of these nerfs for you guys doing keys. I think this is going to make a lot of keys much more timeable that might not have otherwise been timeable before. So first of all, there's an Immature Venom Sac, no longer works in Mythic Plus. This was from Blackrock Spire. People were going to Blackrock Spire to farm this thing, and it would cure a poison effect, and they would bring it into Neltharion's lair because of the Naraxas boss, the big worm that puts poison on everybody. It's really, really frustrating to deal with. This was something that you could keep using to clear that effect, and it helped you time those keys. It doesn't work anymore, and they're going to be nerfing the boss, don't worry, but this no longer works, just so you know, if you were using this strategy before. First boss, first and foremost is Gashtooth. Gash Frenzy, periodic damage reduced by 25%. So this is when he jumps on everybody right at the beginning. This is a pretty big deal. It's still nice. There's tools like Turtle for hunters and everybody else that you can just block this damage entirely. But this puts a dot on you until you get above 90% HP, and then it'll fall off. But on high tyrannical weeks, this would just do like a third of your health, and then the ticking damage would just keep wrecking you. And like, unless the healer was really on the ball, this would destroy you. So they're nerfing this by 25%. That is a hefty nerf, and I think that it's going to make it so that this first boss is no longer bricking people's keys, because this would just be destroying people's keys, and it's not going to be doing that anymore. So this is a great change. I'm glad to see it. Next one up is going to be Decatriarch Watcheye, same dungeon. This is the final boss. So first of all, the Withered Eruption, which is her AoE damage that she does after 2 casts, I believe, of the totem go out. That's down by 10%. Very, very good. That's going to be a lot of damage. The biggest change in my mind is the Rot Burst totem itself. The little cast that it does now is 7 seconds instead of 5. So you can see it right here. I think you'll start to see the wind up. This cast is 7 seconds now instead of 5. I believe it's on live right now, so I think this is a 7 second kind of 1, 2, 3. It was not even get there. Yeah, it wasn't even going to get close. So I think that this is really going to help on tyrannical keys in particular, because this thing has so much health, and it's really going to help you to be able to kill it before it adds a stack to all of you and basically, bricks your key once again. If you start getting stacks from the totem on this boss, it's kind of lights out. So very good change. That is the biggest change in my mind, is the Rot Burst totem change. Let's go to Halls of Infusion. First boss on Halls of Infusion is, of course, Irideus, Watcher Irideus. They didn't change the first couple sequences of his damage, so the static surge, that still does a lot of damage, and you still need to blow a healing cooldown for that. What did change, though, is the power overload, which is the debuffs that he's going to put on allies, and it's really the biggest thing they changed there is the 33% periodic damage. This is huge. So you can see the reduction, in the number of targets. It went from 3 down to 2. That's a massive change right out of the gates for healers. And it also means that the room is going to be less full of puddles. But the biggest change is the ticking damage while you have this dot. You can see this is a plus 17. It's not a tyrannical, but it's still a plus 17. And the ticking damage was like barely even felt right there. So I think that this is the exact change that was needed from Blizzard on this particular boss. The static surge hurts people, but as you can see, it's, you can deal with it if you have your healing cooldowns ready to go. It really was that power overload going on 3 targets, them having to run away, putting puddles down. Often, like, in the later stages of this fight, the ticking damage would take you to, like, half health or a little bit lower, and then when the puddle detonates, you would take 1 tick from the puddle and you would die from that. So really good changes from for Halls of Infusion. That's going to be awesome. Let's go to Neltharis. Before we get to the first boss, Magmatusk here, they did change some of the trash in the dungeon and just made them have less health. So fortified weeks are going to be much easier now with these guys having less health. In particular, the wardens. The wardens are scattered all throughout the dungeon. There's a lot of them. So having 11% less health on them, really big deal. Here's Magmatusk. They changed everything on Magmatusk. So the Magma Eruption. Here's the lava spray. First of all, that lava spray is down by basically 22%. That's pretty insane. When he does his charge and the lava wave comes out, it might not one-shot you anymore. I think on high Tyrannical, this change is probably irrelevant. It's probably still going to one-shot you. But the biggest one in my mind is the Magma Eruption. This is the main healer mechanic that they have to deal with. And it just does a lot of damage. It's happening right now. Volatile Mutation. He erupts with lava. There we go. Fire damage. And then the eruption lasts for 4 seconds per application of the magma tentacle. So this scales into the later part of the fight, the more tentacles he has, and it just does so much damage. So this going down by 25% is a big deal to me. The magma lob is just the pools that spawn on the floor. So less pools on the floor means that the room gets less covered in fire, which is also really, really great. Let's go to the next boss. Forgemaster Gorek. The main change here, first of all, the health going down by 10%, massive. That's a big deal. That's a lot of health that he's losing on Tyrannical especially. Blazing Hammer down by 20%. This is really big. This is what he does right at the beginning of the fight here when he casts Might of the Forge and he starts slamming the anvil right here. Boom. That slam. That is the damage that we're talking about. So you can see it does a lot of damage to us even on Fortified. This isn't even Tyrannical week. So that Blazing Hammer damage going down by 20%. So really, really good to see that. I think this is the only real problem with this fight. The rest of the fight is there's annoying parts of this fight, but in reality, the big problem is when he's slamming down that anvil and doing crazy damage. Like, this is avoidable damage right here. Even when he throws his Aegis, that's also avoidable damage. So I think this is going to be a great change. Finally, the last one in Naraxas is the Warlord Sargha. The Molten Gold is the periodic damage that goes on somebody. It's down by 20%. That's honestly one of the worst parts about this fight. Like, the rest of this fight, it just has a lot of rot damage, because when people pick up the treasures, they start taking damage over time. But whoever gets this Molten Gold over here, you can see it's on this Druid right now, they start taking a lot of ticking damage, especially, again, on Tyrannical week. So, really, I should have shielded this guy. I think my shield was down, and he got out of range. That's another thing that could be really difficult in this fight. So, sorry. That is the main change there, though, is that the Molten Gold is periodic damage going down. Great change. I think the rest of the fight for Warlord Sargha is actually fine. And the fact that they took the health down by 10% is massive. Really big deal. It doesn't sound like a lot, but these bosses have, like, millions and millions of health, right? So I think that this being down by 10% is going to represent a lot of health missing, which is really nice, okay? Neltharion's Lair. The opening packs in Neltharion's Lair has these Vileshard Crawlers, all these little dudes right here. When they die, they kind of detonate in a puddle of green ooze, and you're going to see it right here. If you're standing on that ooze, you will basically die. You see all the damage I just took right there? I'm not sure if I got auto-attack, but I've died plenty of times in this dungeon just standing on these green puddles by accident, because when they die, the goop comes out right away, and people take massive damage. So that's being nerfed by... they no longer scale, sorry, with the Mythic plus key level. So that's really good to hear. I don't really understand what this means in terms of, like, does it stop scaling at +2? Like, literally, it never scales above that? That must have meant they were doing crazy damage for it. But anyway, the point is, it's not going to scale anymore. So the higher key level that you do, you're not going to get one shot by those puddles, which is a great, great change. Now, let's go to Rockmora. The crystalline ground damage reduced by 25%. Massive. This is mostly for melee people like me on all my characters. This is the purple shards that are on the ground that slowly go in. If you move while they're on the ground, you take crazy amounts of damage. And on high Tyrannical, you can basically die. If you're standing in one of these green puddles accidentally and you move while standing on the purple shards, you will basically die. So, yes, you can fix a lot of the problems with this if your positioning is better. Oh, sorry. Like, if my positioning... Oh, no, it's getting all messed up now. If my positioning on this fight was better, God, I hate this feature in Windows, actually. It drives me crazy. Then this wouldn't have been a problem. But there is a way to tank this so that the tank is in a good spot and then melee DPS are in a good spot. But when they get knocked back, you just get knocked back into a wall slightly, so you don't move very far. But that's not always possible to do. And for pugs, like, it's sometimes really difficult to do that. So this change is going to help everybody in a really, really big way. 25% less damage taken from the ground on Rockmora. Really, really good change, I think, for us there. Now, let's move on to the worm. This is Naraxas. This is the reason that the other change happened, right? This is why the Immature Venom Sac got changed. This no longer works. But in response to that, they changed Toxic Wretch. It now only does 25% less damage. Sorry. So this is a really big one. I think, like, there are still lots of dangerous parts of this fight. The boys up above throwing rocks down at you, those dudes are really annoying. They do a lot of damage. The Toxic Wretch is certainly part of why this fight is dangerous, but it's not the worst thing that you can do, and I'm glad that they're reducing it by 25%. So this means that healers that have an ability to clear the poisons, like Enhancement Shaman does with your Poison Cleanse Totem, or Paladins or Mistweaver Monks, or Monks in general, they're going to have a lot more value because you can't just go and cheese the fight with this Immature Venom Sac anymore. Instead, you're going to have to deal with it naturally with whatever your abilities are that you can use to deal with it. So I think that's a good change, and I think Naraxas is going to be much more timeable now. This key in general will be more timeable. Uldaman, let's move on to this. This is the second boss in Uldaman, Sentinel Talondras, or the third boss, sorry. This is the big change here. Earthen Shards, periodic damage reduced by 20%. This is massive. This puts a huge dot on somebody. You can see it right now. The dot is finishing up on the Warlock, and then they just got a new dot put on the Priest. The Priest is taking crazy damage. Like on High Tyrannical, this does like 30% of your damage per tick. It's just like tick, tick, dead on like a 20 Tyrannical key. It really does that much damage. So, this is a good change. This is the only issue I have with this boss fight at all. The rest of the boss fight is fine. The knockback is fine. The way that the tank has to manage the boss so that you stun them right before that they do their big buff, that's okay to me. The big problem is this Earthen Shard periodic damage. And it's something that was actually okay for my Mistweaver to have to deal with, but some classes, man, like Hunters in particular, like cannot deal with this thing at all. So I'm glad that got changed. And then we go on to Emberon. The Seeking Flame visual has been updated. So this is what the old Seeking Flames look like, these little red orbs. They're actually really difficult to see sometimes when you have the overlapping orange circles. You can see there's another orb right here. Like, it can be really difficult to see sometimes. So they changed the visual, and it looks like this now. We'll look at the clip. So you can see now, they look like big tornadoes, which is fantastic. So they're not little blobs anymore. They're actually big tornadoes. And, oh, sorry. Back there. That's a really good change. We'll just see it one more time. Nice to see that because it just, the visual is all that you needed. Like, once you have the overlapping orange circles and in melee, it's not going to be as big of a problem. So really, really glad to see this. This is a great change from them. Really happy that they did that. Okay. Finally, we'll move on. Underrot had some changes. The worms, the grotesque horrors that cast dark echoes, the cast time went up to 1.5 seconds instead of 1 second. This was not really a big deal to me because I was always kind of looking for the kick on this because it's a very, very important ability to kick. It does so much damage to your group. So this is a good change. Nice quality of life for everybody, but really wasn't the end of the world in my mind. And then we have Asaad, the final boss in Vortex Pinnacle. The big problem with this boss fight, of course, is when the ad spawns and it does Skyfall Nova. This does an incredible amount of damage on Tyrannical keys. This is just a +4 that I was doing, so it's kind of hard to notice it here. But this AoE pulsing damage is the real problem on this fight, and it has essentially been fixed. 20% less damage taken from that is huge. That is a massive deal. It essentially nullifies any Tyrannical buff. Like on Tyrannical weeks, it'll just feel like it is on Fortified weeks, basically. So really, really good change here. This Skyfall Nova was the worst part of this fight, and I'm glad that they changed it. That was a really big change as well. Okay, those are all the changes, guys, for the dungeons. Again, this is probably the biggest amount of changes that they've done, I think, in this entire expansion. And certainly in Season 2. We've been waiting for changes for, like, you know, a month now, and nothing has come through. Finally, they decided to change all this. I'm really excited about it. I think it's really going to allow sort of the average player or, you know, maybe a little bit above average players to really push their keys and get higher and higher keys, get past those +20s and get into like +21s and 22s and 23s with, not with ease, but it'll be a lot easier than it was before. So very excited about these changes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about all the dungeon changes? Are you excited? Did they make the right changes? I think they did. I think they nailed every single problem that was in these keys. So let me know what you think in those comments down below. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Love you all. I will see you in the next one.